my buddy Leon. Leon helped me run Red State for a number of years. He moved on from there as I did. And in 2006, no. Rewind. 2008. Leon was at the airport in Des Moines, Iowa. The Iowa caucuses were done. If I remember right, it was right after the Iowa caucuses. Biden happened to come in. People were minding their own business. Leon worked for Red State. Obviously knew who Joe Biden was. He's trying to get coffee or some such. Biden's looking around the room. Makes eye contact with Leon, who clearly recognizes this is Joe Biden. And Biden makes a beeline over to chat him up. If I remember right, it's been a while since we've had this conversation. I mean, it's been a long time. It was 2008. Leon just saying how sad he thought it was. Biden didn't have an entourage at the time. The campaign was clearly going nowhere. And he just wanted someone to recognize him. Joe Biden has been an American elected official for 50 years. Joe Biden abandoned his children after their mother died to go himself be raised by the wolves of the United States Senate, Chris Dodd, Ted Kennedy, and others. Joe Biden invented this mythology that he was on the Amtrak every night going home to his sons. Anybody who knows how the Senate schedule works knows that was not always the case. But everybody wanted to believe it because they wanted to believe Joe Biden was a nice guy. I wanted to believe Joe Biden was a nice guy. I've heard stories for years of Jill Biden and Joe Biden helping soldiers, helping veterans. They had a heart for it, and they've done some charitable things privately. But Joe Biden has been wrong about every major issue for 50 years. And like so many politicians do, he's surrounded himself with sycophants who really can't challenge him. And at the end, he's clearly in decline, and everybody knows he's in decline. I continue to be stunned by the hypocritical little liars of the left who remember the fundraiser in Hollywood. The unedited footage came out that showed Barack Obama clearly leading Joe Biden off that stage. He looked like a lost puppy. And Democrats came forward and said, that's not the Joe Biden we saw on stage. That's a cheap fake. No. You actually watched the entire footage. It was worse than the short clip. Obama had to lead him away. And then it turned out a couple months later, after the CNN debate, people were a little more forthright. Yeah, he was clearly, something was wrong with him there at that stage. They lied to us. The press lied to us. They put on people to lie to us. And the most galling thing, this is the most galling thing to me, is that every time a Republican gets on television, the media demands to know if they believe the 2020 election was stolen. They want to hold him accountable. Chuck Todd at NBC railed against his network for hiring Ronna McDaniel, the RNC chair, because she had been complicit in Donald Trump's insurrection, or whatever they wanted to call it. She had lied about 2020 and on and on and on. Not a single member of the press will ever hold a Democrat accountable for lying about Joe Biden's condition. Every single Republican has to go through the fire with the media over where they stood on the 2020 election in January 6th if they went on TV. But the Democrats can engage in a wholesale cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline, and every member of the press gives them a pass because every member of the press participated and collaborated in the cover-up over Joe Biden's decline. And I will double down and tell you what got me so much hate from so many people, but it's the God's honest truth. Joe Biden is not a good father. His two surviving children have been drug addicts, have struggled for years. Ashley Biden's diary had some pretty damning information in there about her family that the press has largely chosen to ignore. and Hunter Biden was a crackhead who married his dead brother's wife, or at least was in a relationship with her, and turned her into a crackhead. And then they wanted to blame illegal immigrants when they tossed the gun in the school. And Joe Biden did nothing. Joe Biden wouldn't even recognize his granddaughter until it became politically untenable for him to ignore that his son had impregnated a stripper in Arkansas and he had a grandchild that he wants nothing to do with until the press made a big deal about it. And everybody keeps giving this man a pass for everything he's been wrong on, for all of his moral failings, and for the fact that he and his team covered up his mental decline. And his wife has probably been the one ruling the roost, Dr. Jill Biden. The only academics who want to be called doctor are the one with inferiority complex. I don't know a medical doctor in this country who cares if you call him a doctor, but all the education doctorates sure as hell care that you call him a doctor. Just like Jill Biden. These are the people we're being rid of. You can hate on Donald Trump and the gold leaf, and I've said plenty of things myself about Donald Trump. I always laugh when people say, oh, you're such a Trump lover, Erickson. You're humping Donald Trump. It's like, you clearly do not listen to this program or know anything about me. And yet for all of the mockery that you can dish on Donald Trump and gold leaf and the gaudiness and the tackiness, whatever you want to say, look at the Biden family. They are a horrible family of dysfunctional adults who needed Joe Biden to be president of the United States so they could cash in on the grift. They are a trailer park family of grifters who lived off government welfare, and Joe Biden just happened to hang out in the best welfare government-funded house in America, the White House. He's a welfare queen. He's lived off the government dole for 50 years and done nothing spectacular. And when you call him on it, he holds up the memory of his dead son as a shield. Oh, 13 soldiers died in Afghanistan. You can't say that to me. Beau Biden died in Iraq. Except he didn't. He lies about his own dead son's death to try to shield himself from criticism. Good riddance to this man. Good riddance to all of them. But I got to go back to this one central point. And this is the one, if I have a breaking point with the press, and I do, it's this. I've been a defender of the American Press Corps. I don't always like what they do. I'm willing to criticize them, but I'm willing to defend them. But here we are. January of 2025. And every Republican must be asked where you stood on January 6th and where you stood on the stolen election or non-stolen election, whatever you believe. No member of the press will ever hold Democrats accountable for covering up that the president has been in mental decline for 4 straight years. No member of the press will hold other members of the press accountable for being complicit in the cover-up. The press whores of PolitiFact said the lie of the year for 2024 was Donald Trump and J.D. Vance lying about Haitian immigrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio, because the whores at PolitiFact can't hold themselves accountable for participating in the cover-up of the biggest lie of the last 4 years, claiming that Joe Biden was perfectly fine and there was nothing wrong with him, when every single American could see there was something wrong with him. For 4 years, the American Press Corps has been complicit in the gaslighting of the American public, and they can't understand why CNN is in decline, and they can't understand why MSNBC is in decline, and they can't understand why people are bypassing them to go to social media to find conspiracy theorists to tell them the news, because you may be finding a conspiracy theorist who's lying to you, but you're going to them because the press has lied for 4 years, and they are too arrogant and too insular to hold themselves accountable. They're bringing back Brian Stelter on CNN, for God's sakes, and Brian himself is one of the people on air who denied the decline of Donald Trump, or of Joe Biden, but had on air someone who claimed Donald Trump was in mental decline when he was president of the United States. The people who the press hires to monitor the press are too infatuated with the press to do the job of keeping the press honest. Behind me is CNN. It's on TV, and they're talking about the oligarchs, the tech oligarchs, and how it's Joe Biden's big line. And of course, the news media would seize on that because they're just pissed off that they aren't the oligarchs anymore. They're furious that they're not the oligarchs. They're furious that you can go to social media and bypass them. And you have every reason to want to bypass them because they cannot be honest about what you and I have seen with our own eyes, the mental decline of the president of the United States. They can't hold any Democrat accountable for it. They can't hold themselves accountable for it. We've seen members of the press because we have the picture of the reporter who submitted her question in advance to the White House for a press conference. And despite us seeing the picture, seeing the card, having the evidence, they denied that was actually the case. The members of the press protected each other. There will be no accountability. There will only be collapse for them. If there's been one good thing to come out of the Biden administration, it has been the complete collapse of trust in the American media. And because they're so insular and so arrogant, so vain, and so unwilling to self-reflect, so unwilling to exercise any humility, they're just going to double down on what disrupted their relationship with the public, and they're all going to go out of business, except for Fox News. And the rest of them will scream the whole way till they're out of business. The great unraveling of the oligarchs of the press has come because of these tech oligarchs who have done us a favor of allowing us to bypass the people who we now see have never been committed to the truth, just a narrative that benefited the Democrats.